Earth explorers find a medieval world in a brutal war against parasitic, unkillable humans. They face a dilemma and choose to bring peace to the planet. We came to study Eden 9, but Eden 9 had been waiting to study us. The only way to survive is to kill the mirrors at contact, independent of its size and age. The colonists won't have any mercy, just like the mirrors. The long-range scanners of the Daedalus registered a world eerily similar to Earth, yet caught in a perpetual state of medieval conflict. A biting wind whipped across the desolate landscape, hinting at a persistently cold climate. Intrigued, a reconnaissance team, clad in full-body hazmat suits, was dispatched. They landed near what appeared to be a heavily fortified city, its stone walls offering a stark contrast to the snow-dusted ground. The architecture spoke of a rigid, militaristic society, struggling against the harsh environment. The air hummed with a strange tension, different from the usual pre-battle jitters they had observed in other parts of the planet. Their initial attempts at communication were met with suspicion and limited understanding. The local language was a crude dialect, but through gestures and fragmented phrases, the newcomers began to piece together a terrifying reality. The endless wars weren't simply territorial disputes or dynastic squabbles, they were a fight for survival against something far more sinister. The locals spoke of a change that had swept through their people. Individuals became unnervingly calm, their eyes vacant, their voices silent. But the truly horrifying aspect was their apparent immortality. Soldiers recounted tales, their breath misting inside their helmet visors, their faces etched with disbelief and fear, of enemies being hacked to pieces, only to have their limbs twitch back into place, their wounds sealing within hours. They spoke of decapitated bodies reanimating, of arrows piercing vital organs with no effect. Strangely, these changed humans seemed impervious to the cold, often seen wandering almost naked despite the freezing temperatures. Their posture was also disturbing, their spines held in an unnaturally upright position, giving them a stiff, unsettling gait. The only way they had found to truly neutralize these changed humans was through fire. The newcomers observed this firsthand. From a concealed vantage point, they watched as soldiers, clad in crude but functional furs and armor, launched flaming projectiles from massive catapults towards a distant settlement. The sky glowed with the orange hue of uncontrolled fires, and plumes of black smoke billowed into the icy air. It was a brutal, desperate tactic, one the newcomers found deeply unsettling. They had encountered countless forms of warfare across the galaxy, but this systematic burning of their own kind was unprecedented. They also learned of the infection vector. The locals claimed that close proximity to the changed humans was incredibly dangerous. They described a viscous fluid vomited by the infected, capable of transforming anyone it touched. Soldiers, huddled around meager fires for warmth, spoke of comrades being caught within a meter of these silent figures and succumbing to the change within moments. The changed humans were particularly dangerous up close, their silent approach and sudden violent expulsion of the infectious fluid making them a constant threat. Driven by a need to understand, the reconnaissance team decided to make direct contact. They landed their craft in the center of what appeared to be a deserted town. Buildings stood empty, coated in a layer of frost, and an eerie silence hung in the frigid air. As they cautiously moved through the snow-covered streets, a disturbing sight unfolded. From the shadows of the buildings, figures began to emerge. They were human, but their faces were blank, their eyes fixed in a wide, unblinking stare. A chilling smile stretched across their lips, contrasting starkly with their near-naked forms in the biting cold. Their unnaturally straight spines gave them a grotesque, almost puppet-like appearance. Slowly, silently, they began to converge on the newcomers. Panic flared within the Earth team. They tried to retreat, but the changed humans were surprisingly fast, their bare feet seemingly unaffected by the frozen ground. One of the crew members, a communications specialist, was suddenly surrounded. The infected humans seemed to understand the purpose of the protective suits. As the crew member frantically tried to remove his helmet, hoping to somehow communicate, the changed humans swarmed him. They forced him to the ground, their grip surprisingly strong despite their emaciated appearance. With deliberate, unsettling movements, they began to tear at his hazmat suit, their silent, focused efforts ripping through the reinforced fabric. Before his team could react, they had ripped open the suit around his head and neck. One of the infected leaned in and, with a guttural heave, vomited a torrent of thick, dark fluid directly onto the exposed face of the crew member. The transformation was instantaneous. His eyes glazed over and the chilling smile mirrored those of his attackers. The rest of the team recoiled in horror, firing their stun weapons, but the changed humans barely reacted. They seemed impervious to pain and the cold. With their comrade now one of them, the remaining members of the reconnaissance team scrambled back to their ship, their minds reeling from the terrifying encounter. Back on board the Daedalus, the crew analyzed the planet's biomes. Scanners revealed that while the northern regions were locked in this brutal struggle, the warmer areas near the equator teemed with a larger human population. Strangely, there was no sign of the ongoing war there. The barbarian tribes they had encountered in the north seemed unable or unwilling to venture into these warmer lands. Instead, the scans indicated the presence of a much older, more established kingdom in the equatorial region. The crew wanted to learn more and understand this threat. Instead of landing again, they decided to observe from a safer distance. They identified a lone infected human wandering in the snow-covered landscape. With precise targeting, they unleashed a focused burst from the Daedalus's powerful ship-mounted lasers, striking the figure from high above. When the energy dissipated, only a small, smoking fragment of the body remained on the frozen ground. Through the ship's advanced sensors, they zoomed in on the charred remains. To their horror, they observed the meat on this remaining piece still twitching, and tiny, pale larvae were wriggling out of the burnt flesh. They deployed a remote drone equipped with a collection unit to carefully retrieve a sample of the larvae. Back on the ship, under strict biohazard protocols, they conducted a thorough analysis. Using advanced microscopic techniques, they finally managed to identify the parasitic creature that was controlling the human population. It was a complex organism, unlike anything they had encountered before. A wave of grim determination washed over the remaining crew. The plan was to weaponize it. They would release the pathogen over the northern territories, effectively turning it into a bioweapon against the barbarians and potentially ending their suffering. They also wanted to perform an experiment and spread it around the equator. The parasite was not heat-resistant and would not survive there, but it was interesting from a study point of view. Furthermore, they carefully sealed another sample, intending to bring it back to Earth for further study. The implications were staggering. Could this pathogen be useful back home, potentially bringing peace to humanity forever? The thought sent a shiver down their spines, a terrifying question mark hanging over their mission. The researcher, Dr. Eris Thorne, adjusted the focusing lens of her scanner, the crimson light of Eden 9's twin suns painting the alien flora in vivid hues. It was a morning like any other during their 6 cycles on this seemingly paradisiacal world. The air, thick with the aroma of sweet metallic spores and the undertones of decaying vegetation, filled her lungs with a strange, exhilarating freshness. Her boots crunched softly on the crystalline soil as she navigated the field of luminescent fungi, their caps glowing with an internal violet light. This particular specimen, designated 291, exhibited a fascinating phototropic response, its delicate filaments unfurling to follow the shifting light of the binary stars. Her recorder chirped, capturing her observations.
Specimen 291 continues to display unusual phototropic behavior. The violet filaments exhibit a complex, almost intelligent pattern of movement, responding to light variations with a speed and precision not observed in other fungal species on Eden 9.
A sudden, sharp sting pierced the silence. Eris recoiled, her gloved hand flying back. A slender, almost invisible tendril extending from the base of a larger mushroom with a cap the size of her palm had breached the protective barrier. A single drop of crimson blood bloomed on the gray fabric of her glove. The fungal growth beneath her touch pulsed with a faint internal luminescence, greedily absorbing the droplet into its intricate structure. Regulations dictated immediate reporting, quarantine protocols, a thorough decontamination procedure. The colony's safety depended on strict adherence to these rules. Yet, a strange lassitude washed over Ares, a feeling of profound connection to the vibrant life surrounding her. She hesitated, the image of the glowing fungus imprinted on her mind. With a sigh, she cleaned the wound with a sterilizing wipe, applied a sealant patch, and continued her work. The incident filed away in the back of her thoughts. By the time Ares returned to the habitat dome, the pinprick wound on her finger was gone. Not healed, not scabbed over, simply vanished, leaving behind skin as smooth and unbroken as a newborn's. She dismissed it as the rapid regenerative properties of her own body, enhanced by the low gravity and nutrient-rich atmosphere of Eden 9. That night, sleep offered no respite. Instead, her mind was filled with the sensation of roots, not the familiar anchoring roots of Earth's flora, but something alien, purposeful, and unsettlingly alive. In her dreams, they snaked through her, not as invasive parasites, but as silent explorers charting the intricate pathways of her veins, her arteries, her very being. She awoke with a gasp, her body slick with a sweat that carried a faint, earthy aroma, reminiscent of damp soil and the metallic tang of Eden 9's air. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror offered a semblance of normalcy. The same familiar features, the same hazel eyes stared back. But as she leaned closer, scrutinizing her skin, she noticed them. Faint, dark lines, like delicate veins, tracing a network just beneath the surface. They pulsed with a subtle rhythm, perfectly synchronized with the beat of her heart. A wave of unease should have washed over her, a primal fear of the unknown. But instead, a strange sense of invigoration filled her. The perpetual fatigue that had been a constant companion during the long journey and the initial acclimatization vanished. She felt lighter, more energetic than she had in years. A peculiar excitement, an almost giddy anticipation, bubbled within her. The following morning, Ares volunteered to prepare the communal nutrient paste for the science team. Her movements were fluid, precise, almost graceful. As she stirred the vat, her fingernail, elongated and subtly darkened at the base, scraped against the rim. A minute, almost imperceptible fragment flaked off, dissolving into the bland mixture. Dr. Jian Li, the colony's botanist, was the first to comment.
"This batch tastes different,"
he murmured, his brow furrowed in mild curiosity after the first tasteless mouthful.
New nutrient blend. The supply ship brought it in the last cycle. Enhanced mineral content, they said.
By midday, Jian's persistent seasonal allergies, which had plagued him since childhood, had vanished. He remarked on his newfound clarity of breath with a bewildered smile. Throughout the day, subtle changes rippled through the colony. Medical chronic tremors, a consequence of years working in zero-gravity environments, disappeared. Medical Officer Ben Carter's old burn scars, a grim reminder of a past accident, began to fade, the skin beneath growing smoother, more resilient. They all moved with a newfound synergy, their actions becoming more coordinated, their reactions faster. It was as if an invisible conductor was orchestrating their movements, each individual a part of a larger, harmonious whole. Conversations flowed with an almost telepathic understanding, disagreements dissolving into a shared, unspoken consensus. A quiet, pervasive contentment settled over the habitat dome. Only one individual remained untouched by the subtle shift: Commander Marcus Cole, the colony's security officer. He had always been an outlier, a man of rigid protocols and unwavering skepticism. He observed the changes in his colleagues with a growing unease, his gaze sharp and wary. Marcus barricaded himself within the communications room, the heavy blast doors sealed shut. His voice, strained and laced with a desperate urgency, crackled over the emergency broadcast channel.
This is Commander Cole. Repeat, this is Commander Cole. Do not consume the nutrient paste. Do not drink the recycled water. They are not who they appear to be. Something has infected them. They are...
The transmission abruptly cut off, replaced by a burst of static, followed by an unnerving silence. A wet, sickening crunch echoed through the sealed room, followed by the soft thud of something heavy hitting the floor. Aris found him later in the hydroponics bay, tending to the rows of alien vegetables with an almost reverent focus. His movements were deliberate, graceful, his hands gently coaxing the vibrant green leaves. His eyes, once filled with suspicion, now shone with an unnerving clarity, reflecting the soft glow of the cultivated plants. He was grafting sections of the violet filament fungus onto earth-based tomato vines, the alien tendrils intertwining seamlessly with the familiar green stalks. He turned to them, a serene smile gracing his lips, his teeth appearing unnaturally white and slightly elongated.
Why were we ever afraid?
He asked, his voice a soft, melodic murmur.
This is not infection. This is connection. We are becoming one with Eden 9. It is beautiful.
When the long-awaited relief ship, the Starseeker, finally descended through Eden 9's atmosphere, the colony appeared more vibrant and prosperous than ever. The habitat dome gleamed under the light of the twin suns, surrounded by lush, meticulously cultivated gardens where alien flora and Earth crops grew in harmonious abundance. The research team, their faces radiating health and vitality, stood in neat formation at the landing pad, their smiles warm and welcoming. As the ramp of the Starseeker lowered and the new crew members, weary from their long journey, stepped onto the crimson soil, they inhaled deeply, filling their lungs with the sweet, metallic-tinged air. They commented on the colony's remarkable progress, the researchers' glowing health, the planet's breathtaking beauty. From the shadows of the central biodome, Dr. Aris watched the newcomers, a faint smile playing on her lips. Her fingers twitched almost imperceptibly, mimicking the delicate dance of the violet spores drifting on the gentle breeze.
Welcome home,
she whispered, her voice a soft, almost inaudible caress. And the planet, in the rustling of its alien leaves and the gentle hum of its fungal networks, seemed to whisper back in agreement. Nestled within the verdant embrace of an ecosystem teeming with bizarre flora and fauna, life was a constant dance between challenge and profound reward. The colonists, a mix of scientists, engineers, and dreamers, had forged a small but thriving community. Then, everything changed. The discovery came during a routine exploration near the shimmering Lumina Falls, a cascade of water that glowed with an ethereal luminescence. A small scouting party stumbled upon several peculiar creatures unlike anything they had ever encountered in their extensive studies of planet's biodiversity. Roughly the size of a terrestrial house cat, each possessed fur the color of soft twilight, a delicate gray that seemed to absorb the ambient light. Their faces were endearingly round, almost childlike, giving them an air of innocent curiosity. But it was their eyes that truly captivated and unsettled the colonists, enormous black orbs that seemed to swallow the light entirely, perfectly reflecting the world around them like polished obsidian mirrors. The colonists, initially charmed by their seemingly harmless appearance, affectionately named them mirrors. Dr. Lena, a xenobiologist whose passion for the unknown burned brighter than the sun. She was the first to truly forge a close interaction with one of the mirrors. It seemed initially timid, hesitant to approach the towering human form, but Lena's gentle, patient demeanor and offerings of brightly colored local fruits soon earned its fragile trust. This particular mirror, smaller than the others the team had observed, would often sit quietly in her makeshift laboratory, its large, reflective eyes silently observing her every movement, occasionally tilting its round head as if engaged in deep, silent contemplation. Nobody knew that Lena's new friend was inside the colony. This was not allowed. But due to its size, Lena managed to secretly bring it with her in her expedition gear. Lena found its constant, quiet presence strangely soothing, a unique form of companionship in the profound vastness of space, a silent confidant in her isolated work. The change began for Lena with a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in her perception of time. She found herself increasingly lost in vivid memories, recollections of her distant childhood, moments long forgotten resurfacing with startling, almost visceral clarity. It wasn't just remembering. It was like reliving them, the emotions as raw and real as the day they occurred. At first, she welcomed it, a pleasant and unexpected journey into the rich tapestry of her past, often triggered by the silent, unwavering gaze of her mirror. But then, the memories started to bleed into her waking hours, an incessant stream of images and sensations that made it increasingly difficult to focus on her intricate research. She felt perpetually dreamy, her mind caught in a liminal space between the present reality of her lab and 1,000 fragmented yesterdays. Her colleagues, initially amused by her occasional absent-mindedness, soon noticed a more concerning pattern.
Lena, are you all right?
Asked Marcus, the colony's lead engineer, his brow furrowed with concern during a crucial planning meeting about the colony's expanding power grid.
You seem distant. You haven't contributed to the discussion in the last hour.
Lena would often just offer a vague, unfocused smile, her mind lost in a vivid memory of a sun-drenched summer picnic with her family, or the soft purr of a beloved childhood pet. Attempts to rouse her fully from these nostalgic reveries proved increasingly difficult. It was as if a vital part of her consciousness was permanently tethered to another time, another place, leaving her present self a mere echo. Soon, whispers began to circulate throughout the small colony as others started to exhibit remarkably similar symptoms. They spoke of vivid, almost hallucinatory recollections, of feeling constantly immersed in the emotional landscape of their pasts. It quickly became clear that several colonists had formed unusually close bonds with individual mirrors, often spending hours close to the colony. Some became increasingly withdrawn, content to simply exist within the comforting, albeit illusory, embrace of their personalized memories, seemingly tethered to their own personal mirror like a ship to its anchor. The colony's overall productivity plummeted, essential tasks left undone as more and more colonists drifted into their nostalgic dreamscapes, in their dreams meeting the loved ones, or reliving the life before this journey. The affected colonists were invariably those who had spent significant amounts of time in close proximity to one of the creatures. She herself had initially brought her mirror into her personal living quarters, offering it comforts and a steady supply of food, mostly the sweet, brightly colored berries and crisp, leafy vegetables she gathered from the surrounding alien flora. One day, far away from the colony, her now-grown mirror had tilted its head in that characteristic inquisitive way, and, through a subtle mental prompting that felt like a gentle, almost telepathic whisper in her mind, conveyed a distinct desire for more. It then flooded her with a powerful memory of pure, unadulterated joy of seeing she and her mother embarked on a space tour to Earth's atmosphere, looking at the blue and green planet from high above, a moment of carefree laughter and boundless happiness. The message, though unspoken, was undeniably clear. Bring it more substantial sustenance, and the pleasant memories, the comforting escape, would continue. As Lena's mirror grew subtly larger, its round form becoming slightly more elongated, its appetite visibly increased. It began to gently nudge her with its soft head, its reflective eyes seeming to plead for more substantial sustenance than mere fruits and vegetables. Lena, perhaps naively interpreting this as a sign of deepening trust and affection, and desperately eager to relive those beautiful, cherished memories, started bringing it large, docile rodents with surprisingly tender meat that roamed the grassy plains surrounding the colony. The hunts were sometimes challenging, requiring her to venture further from the safety of the settlement, but Lena felt a strange, almost irresistible compulsion to provide for her silent companion. Then came the tragic and deeply unsettling fate of old man Tiberius, the colony's beloved historian. He went off and didn't return for weeks, so the colonists sensed that something was off. The frantic search party found him later at the base of the jagged cliffs, his frail body broken and lifeless from the catastrophic fall. It appeared he had simply walked off the edge. The other colonists, profoundly shaken by the sudden and inexplicable loss, tried desperately to rouse Lena from her increasingly deep reverie with the mirror, but it was no use. What if she ended up just like Tiberius, after a long connection with Mirror choosing to suicide? Elara, a strong-willed and pragmatic friend of Lena after the loss of Tiberius, her partner and mentor, tried desperately to reach Lena, to somehow break through the thick fog that clouded her eyes. She could not live without Lena, her best friend. She could not lose her. But Lena reacted with unexpected aggression, her pleasant memories twisting into vivid and disturbing nightmares that spilled into her waking moments once she disobeyed the mirror. She spoke of shadowy figures lurking in forgotten corners of her mind and long-buried childhood fears resurfacing with terrifying intensity, her words often laced with a pain and anxiety that Elara knew wasn't truly her own. One night, Lena ran off into the perpetual twilight that bathed the alien landscape, a haunted and desperate look in her eyes, presumably to fulfill the ever-increasing demands of her growing mirror. Days bled into weeks, and Lena remained missing, the colonists' hope for her safe return slowly dwindling. Then, the first body was found. It was young Samuel in a secluded grove not far from the Lumina Falls. His body was completely drained of blood, with strange, precise wounds that looked almost surgical in their precision. A wave of cold fear washed over the remaining colonists, a chilling premonition of the horrors to come. Whispers of a predator began to circulate amongst the terrified survivors, and the horrifying realization slowly dawned upon them that the other affected colonists, each seemingly serving their own increasingly demanding mirror, were the likely culprits in Samuel's gruesome demise. Elara and Marcus were moving cautiously through the perpetual twilight, their boots crunching softly on the alien moss that carpeted the ground. Armed with newly 3D-printed assault rifles, they patrolled the colony area. In the distance, through the dense, alien foliage, they spotted Lena moving with an unsettling, almost predatory speed through the trees. They watched in stunned silence as she stalked a large, slow, ape-like creature, an herbivore native to the planet known for its gentle nature. Lena moved with a focused intensity that was both terrifying and mesmerizing, her movements fluid and deadly, completely devoid of any hesitation or emotion. With a sudden burst of unnatural energy, she lunged at the unsuspecting creature, her actions swift and brutal. A crude spear, seemingly appearing in her hand as if by dark magic, was thrust into the creature's chest with brutal efficiency. Elara watched, a tight knot of icy fear tightening in her, noting the complete and utter lack of emotion in Lena's once kind green eyes. This was not the gentle, thoughtful Lena they had all known and loved.
Lena, what happened? What are you doing?
Lena turned her head slowly, her vacant gaze locking onto Marcus. For a fleeting, heart-stopping moment, Elara thought she saw a flicker of the old Lena in her eyes, a brief spark of recognition in the empty void. But then, with horrifying, unnatural speed, Lena rushed toward Samuel. It looked almost like she was going to embrace him, a desperate attempt to reconnect. But instead of a comforting hug, Lena's arms wrapped around Marcus's head, and with a sickening, audible crack, she twisted with unnatural, inhuman force. Marcus's body went instantly limp in her grasp, falling lifeless to the alien moss-covered ground. Elara could only watch in stunned and utter horror as Lena, without a second glance at Marcus's broken and lifeless form, continued deeper into the twilight. Elara, her heart pounding with a terrifying mixture of dread and inconsolable grief, cautiously followed Lena's now obvious trail through the undergrowth. It led her to a secluded grove bathed in the eerie perpetual twilight. There, in the center of the clearing, she saw Lena kneeling beside her mirror. The creature had grown significantly larger since Lena had first brought it to the colony. Its once cute and innocent features now subtly sharp and undeniably predatory. Its obsidian eyes glowed with a malevolent hunger as it greedily fed on Marcus's remains. Lena looked up as Alara approached, her own eyes vacant and disturbingly similar to the mirror's, a chilling, primal hunger clearly reflected in their depths. She flew up and started to walk in Alana's direction, but stopped with tears on her cheeks. She tried to cover her eyes, whispering something. A faint flicker of her former self, a desperate spark of her original consciousness, ignited within the depths of her mind. A wave of profound horror washed over her as she momentarily registered the raw taste of blood on her hands, the primal scent of fear emanating from Alara. As Lena attacked, her mind recoiled in revulsion, a desperate internal attempt to break free from the insidious alien influence of her mirror. But the connection, forged through weeks of shared memories and provided sustenance, was simply too deep, too strong to sever easily. Alara managed to stumble backward, her hand reaching for the riffle secured to her belt. With a surge of adrenaline fueled by terror and the instinct for survival, she activated the device and fired the entire magazine. The black glue-like substance sipped out of the lifeless mirror, filling the entire grove. Lena's body convulsed violently, and she cried out and collapsed onto the cold ground filled with the black liquid, her limbs spasming uncontrollably, her eyes rolling back in her head, leaving Alara to witness the horrifying aftermath. Alara, battered and bruised, her body aching and her heart heavy with loss, managed to subdue the now unconscious Lena, though the sight of her former friend in such a broken and unresponsive state was deeply disturbing. With immense effort, she dragged Lena back towards the flickering lights of the struggling colony. The discovery of Lena's horrific actions and the horrifying true nature of the seemingly innocent mirrors sent shockwaves of terror and despair through the remaining colonists. Fear quickly turned to widespread panic as they finally grasped the full, terrifying extent of the creature's insidious influence. Many of their friends and loved ones were already gone, either lost to the insatiable hunger of the rapidly growing mirrors, or completely controlled and turned into mindless hunters themselves, each serving their own alien master. The once thriving and hopeful colony was now a mere shadow of its former glory, its numbers dwindling rapidly with each passing twilight. Lena remained in a deep, catatonic state, her eyes forever filled with the black liquid from the mirror. Alara and the few remaining unaffected colonists huddled together in their fortified central building, their hope fading with each passing day, desperately trying to understand the true nature of the alien mind control and find any possible way to survive the encroaching darkness. The only way to survive is to kill the mirrors at contact, independent of its size and age. The colonies won't have any mercy, just like the mirrors.